Good morning, everyone, and again, welcome and thank you for attending. I hope you're as excited about the news as we are. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be a roller coaster, but it's going to be an absolute huge series of benefits for, I think, all the stakeholders in the market. So we're really excited to get started and to partner with you. Joining me here today in our small but mighty panel that definitely punch above their weight class, so we're going to get some great feedback. Robin LeGassicke, who's the Managing Director of Digital at Cairns Oneil. Just by way of intro, Robin started her career in media strategy and execution, expanding into MarTech and digital operations over the years. Most of her career has been spent on the agency side with some client-side time as well, giving her a well-rounded perspective. She has a passion for leveraging data, insights, and technology to solve business challenges, continuously looking for better and more effective ways to generate results. She currently manages the digital practice at Cairns Oneil, evaluating and implementing technologies and building high-performance teams to lead clients' business in an ever-evolving landscape. How good does that sound? That's just pretty good. Second, but certainly not least, Mark Risis, VP Strategy and Global Data Ecosystem at PepsiCo, is currently on sabbatical from the U.S. Welcome, north of the border. Mark is a visionary digital transformation executive who specializes in translating strategy into reality at the intersection of business, data, and technology. He has an extensive track record of successful entrepreneurial leadership of enterprises into new digital functional areas of profitable operational growth, including starting, building, and leading numerous capabilities at PepsiCo's Global Data and Analytics division. He developed and published the company's first enterprise data strategy. He also built and managed the data monetization business for the Weather Channel as part of IBM Watson, building and scaling cross-platform viewership, data business for TiVo, and numerous early digital strategy and creative production experiences at startups and IPG. So two very experienced and seasoned executives here. Really looking forward to getting your feedback on some of the themes that Jan, Joe, and Sean touched on. And the first thing we're going to talk about is data collaboration. I'm going to see how many times we can actually say collaboration in one meeting, because really that's what it's all about here, getting under the tent. So I'm going to start first with Robin. Robin, we see pockets of collaboration in Canada. I think we've seen a lot of discussion around first-party data strategies and the importance of leveraging first-party data. So we're seeing it, I would argue, tactically. I don't think we're seeing it yet at a strategic level. And we know that in order to unlock the real opportunities out there and develop those great customer experiences, we need those first-party data strategies and data collaboration. Can you give me your perspective on what you see is happening in the Canadian market?
For sure. Thanks for having me, first of all. In terms of first-party data, we all know how important it is. It was part of the presentation earlier. Clients are told, make sure that you're collecting first-party data. We're working towards a cookieless environment. We've been working in a cookieless environment for multiple years now, as the cookie has slowly been deprecating. The challenge is what to do with that first-party data, number one, where you're collecting it, how you're collecting it, where you're storing it, whether you have the right privacy policies in place, whether you have the systems in place to then track the policies that you need to have and the opt-ins and opt-outs that you need to have. And then what do you do with that, and how do you scale it in an environment to make it to execute on it? Just having first-party data is a very small first step. It's understanding what your strategy internally needs to be to build the ecosystem and the infrastructure, making sure you have the operational infrastructure and capital expense from a resource and budgetary perspective to be able to build what's necessary to leverage that, and ensuring that all your internal stakeholders are aligned to that. And what is that strategy driving? And we talked, and I heard from the people that were speaking earlier, how are you measuring if you're actually getting a return on that investment as well? And that's a big step. So clients are struggling in terms of, where do we start? How do we build that? Is it effective? Is it going to have a return on my investment? And that's a really big challenge, especially for a market like Canada, where yes, it's a big market, but it's a small market, and we have a different economy of scale than they do in other markets to be able to support that.
That's great. So sounds like a little bit of a playbook. I mean, making it easy, but also a little bit of a playbook to be able to, get clients onboarded and help them through the process.
Definitely.
Great. Thank you. Mark, so, we as Canadians get a lot of exposure to trade media and news coming from south of the border where, we know that, the space is more advanced. There's been a lot more collaboration going on for any number of reasons in the U.S. for quite some time, right? So whether it's brand to brand or brand with media platforms and publishers, to really look at creating that network almost of collaboration partners. So can you just speak to us a bit more about that from your perspective?
Hello? Yeah. Absolutely, and thank you for having me. Really a pleasure to be part of this really meaningful, milestone partnership. So data collaboration has been something that I've been focusing on for some time, and it actually started with the notion that how do you monetize data without actually sending the data anywhere? This was actually a paradigm that was presented to me some years ago. But I think it's an important insight in that as more and more data gets created, as more brands acquire, manage, and really take advantage of first-party data, the risk with letting it go, just sending it around, starts to exceed the potential benefit. So the spirit of collaboration really is how do you extract value in a bidirectional or multi-directional way while maintaining control and while enforcing governance and all the compliance, regulatory, and so on that is requisite in order to manage the risk while gaining the benefit. And I've really been inspired that data collaboration is catching wind, and at PepsiCo we've started from a priority standpoint collaboration with more important partners such as retailers, our bottling partners across the world, and our media partners. And I'll quickly touch on those in that retailers are sitting on treasure troves of consumer data, and that is very important for us as a CPG brand because we need to get close to those consumers. PepsiCo historically is a B2B company. We sell to stores, store sells to consumers, but we want to really tailor our messaging, our marketing, and our relationship with consumers directly. So to do that, we need to go closer with the retailers, and data collaboration is something we've, in partnership with them, started to really put in place. So there are multiple environments where we can get our, air quotes, hands on retailer data while the retailer maintains absolute control, but we're able to make it fit our representation of our consumers in a way that also makes them comfortable, that it's mutually beneficial. Similarly, with different publishers, we want to understand, I think many mentioned, the outcome, right? Targeting is one thing, but knowing what happens, knowing what the outcome, what the attribution is, becomes more and more important. And clean rooms have been instrumental in helping us get more granularity, more fidelity, and more speed in terms of being able to actually optimize against some of those. And lastly, on the brand-to-brand, we really started to engage with non-competitive, but similar brands that are approaching the space in the same way. So that's large personal care brands, automotive brands, others in consumer goods that are not foods and beverages, like personal care, toilet paper, and things like that. And really having meaningful conversations. How can we establish collaboration environments where we can learn from each other, where we can share ways of engaging, messaging, and measuring with our consumers in a way that's privacy compliant, but also accelerates our respective journeys in the space. So really exciting times for data collaboration.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Those are great feedback. So I'm going to switch gears a bit. In the ad tech space and in our industry generally, a lot of buzzwords. One of the buzzwords, apart from collaboration, is interoperability. Okay, we talk about interoperability all the time. So that concept of being able to seamlessly access and share data across different environments. The walled gardens, the cloud environments, etc. Which obviously has data security and privacy implications, but also has operational implications, right? In terms of ease of accessing and being able to use those data. Mark, I'm going to flip it back to you. Why is interoperability a big deal?
It's a great question, and I think it's not just a big deal. I think it's a huge deal because when, as a brand, you start to bring in first-party data and you start to structure what essentially is a internal representation of external reality. How does a brand see the world? That comes with a certain set of biases. It's sort of where you started, choices are made, and that creates a lot of challenges because that view, how you set your data internally, doesn't always match with how other brands or publishers or retailers, in our case, and so on, set up their data representation. So if you want to start to collaborate, you very quickly reach an impasse where our stuff doesn't match your stuff, and you can't unlock use cases. You can't scale. You have to invest, and I think you were going down that road a little earlier, that you have to overspend to get to a simple answer, and that's not good ROI. So getting a leg up on interoperability, operating within a common standard framework, one that perhaps is imposed on you by a partner like LiveRamp that says, hey, this is how things have to be set up in order to get into a clean room, in order to unlock all the use cases that you guys saw. While it's a little frustrating at the onset, when you conform to that, you actually accelerate your ability to extract value from your data, from your partner's data, and the standardization interoperability is ultimately it's a cost efficiency play. You can get so much more value because of the standardization versus having to do everything in a custom manner, ad hoc. All those are sunk costs that ultimately are a headwind for profitable growth.
And Robin, from your perspective, I mean, you touched on, operational ease as one of the key success factors. Does interoperability help that?
Absolutely. It is even more important, I believe, in the Canadian marketplace than it is in the US because of the scale that we have here, or the lack of scale that we have here. So in order for us to really assess an end-to-end journey or understand attribution or bring the different pieces together, that interoperability is what allows us to do it seamlessly. And if we don't have that, to what you were talking about, then we're counseling clients on, well, now you need this piece of tech, or now you need to invest here, or now you need to bring in, these resources to be able to make this, or you have to have this to be able to stitch those two pieces together, or those three pieces together. And the data breaks along the way, and the pieces break along the way. So you're not getting a true end-to-end look, and therefore you can't measure attribution appropriately. So without the interoperability, you're basically working in silos and unable to bring the pieces together.
Great, thank you. Okay, one other topic that came up frequently, I think it was mentioned by all three introductory speakers, was around measurement. Measuring outcomes, impact, cross-channel analysis, all again, things that we're hearing at probably every trade conference that we're going to. It's always been that sort of holy grail that we haven't got there yet, right? It's just we haven't done that. We've now got but we have the tools. We have the technology. We now know, and as part of the announcement with LiveRamp, in combination with some of our analytical tools, that sense of that connectivity out to the ecosystem, and then that return of all that data now back into platform for analysis and measurement of those outcomes is doable. Robin, where do you think we are, again, from a Canadian landscape standpoint? What's the state of the nation?
I don't think we're there yet. I think this is a step in the right direction. I think we need our publishers. I think we need our walled gardens. I think we need them to start to be able to play nice together and bring their data in to the collaboration spaces and allow us to be able to look at it in that sense of being able to find those crossovers, understand the attribution, be able to leverage it in a clean room environment that is beyond a 2-partner, 3-partner clean room. That is what is going to allow us to have true visibility into outcomes and understand what is working. And I think that those who contribute to the space and collaborate within the space are those that are going to eventually win in this marketplace. And those who don't, they will start to see declines in their revenue in their business.
And Mark, it's not just about reach. We talked about it's not reach. It's not just about impressions. All good, and it's really about, okay, at the end of the day, did this actually make the till ring, so to speak? Were there dollars generated from this, and from whom? who was actually buying, and parsing that out into, in fact, different segments of understanding based on your campaigns and your audience targeting that you're trying to go out there, who in fact are the ones who are buying and who are not, and therefore how do I optimize media accordingly? What's your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely not just about impressions, and also not just about the sale, because I think it's probably similar from a walled garden perspective in Canada. There's a disproportionate credit from a last click attribution to walled gardens, right? It's sort of the law of the numbers here, where they're most likely to get that last click, and therefore credit is given for that action. But we know as individuals and as professionals here that it's much more complicated. The funnel, the journey is much more nuanced, and there's a lot that happens that isn't given fair credit. So I think from a publisher standpoint, it is absolutely in the best incentive to start to get into the space, so that as we move up, and this is what we started to do at PepsiCo, you start to really set up the kind of the activation from a micro segment standpoint. You set up not just A/B testing, you set up things up like A to Z testing, which is something you can now manage through a technology like LiveRamp, where you can look at upper funnel breadcrumbs, awareness, intentionality, things that even walled gardens are making available at certain level of aggregation and anonymization, to say what is really working across the entire consumer journey, and how do you optimize at every level, not just at that last click, which by the time that happens, the story is done. But what happens further upstream, and how do you navigate and calibrate all those actions? Because now with technology, you can actually optimize in flight. You don't need to wait after the campaign is over and get a report months later at best, and then have directional learnings. You can actually start to take action and get more ROI for investment, reduce inefficiencies, improve what's working, and continue to do that as a sort of an always-on mantra, not a nice-to-have.
Thank you. So last question for you both, because I know we're running out of time here. But we talked before when we were preparing for this a little bit, and it was great because you both came up with the same concept that extends this idea of ROI. So it's not just measurement and impact, on whether it's on transactional behavior or the ability then to measure foot traffic and things like that. It really goes beyond ROI or ROAS, anyways, return on ad spend, and into more of a total cost of ownership type equation. So it's great to get that return, but it's also, I think, Robin, you touched on it, and I think Mark also in our conversation, it's really about, okay, I'm an organization, I don't want to just keep layering on more and more layers of ad tech. How do I need this to be justified. I need to show that this not only generates a return for me for my ad spend, but in terms of my, how this integrates into my ecosystem, how I'm going to really leverage this. So it's really a full package. Robin?
Yeah, it boils down to ultimately understanding what your overall strategy needs to be from a marketing business, ad tech, MarTech perspective. The value that is going to be placed on the different MarTech that you are implementing, the capital resources it takes, the internal resources that it takes, and ultimately, what is that driving for you? And is that driving incremental business? Is that driving short-term, mid-term, long-term success for your business outcomes? How are you looking at it through the entire funnel to make sure that whatever you're investing in is going to provide that incrementality on the return on that investment? And brands have a hard time measuring that. So, and we don't have the same volume and economy of scale for capital resources in Canada to be able to invest in that. So having a centralized location to be able to, do what you guys are doing, I think is going to be of value. Definitely having that interoperability on top of that creates that value proposition for our clients and our brands and our agencies. So I think that's all steps in the right direction for sure.
Mark?
Yeah, I know I have maybe 60 seconds. But yeah, I echo exactly what you said, Robin. I think it's a tremendously difficult thing to manage data, activate data, and do everything internally, right? And that adds to the total cost of ownership. And if you can offload that cost and go with something more standardized, more interoperable, you essentially get to value faster without a headwind and having to continue to go ask for incremental resources without a clear answer why, because those are ultimately sunk costs, and sunk costs are not really exciting for a long time. But I think it also, really importantly, everything we're talking about actually helps position marketing, advertising, and everything that most of the folks I assume in this room do, not just as a nice to have from a CFO perspective, but as an actual business driver. If you can, to your point, show clear visibility, we're investing here, we're optimized like this, it becomes a commercial tool. It becomes a real business tool that makes it easier for getting additional investment, makes it easier to explain to the CEO and the board why this is so critical. So it elevates something that I think is more of a tangential sometimes to a really core pillar of the organization's vitality and ultimately a driver of growth and profitable growth.
So fantastic comments. Thank you very much for joining me up here today. Thank you for traveling north of the border, and really appreciate your insights. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.